Hola y bienvenidos a Inglés Global. En este video vas a aprender inglés con una historia poderosa, la historia de Moisés, el gran líder de la Biblia. Durante toda la clase tendrás los subtítulos en inglés, es decir, el texto que aparece justo al mismo tiempo que el audio, y también los subtítulos en español, para que puedas entender cada parte y seguir aprendiendo sin frustrarte. Aprender inglés con historias reales y emocionantes como esta es una forma increíble de mejorar tu vocabulario, entrenar tu oído y ver cómo se usa el idioma en situaciones concretas. Así que si quieres seguir creciendo en tu camino con el inglés, suscríbete al canal, deja tu comentario contándonos qué aprendiste y comparte este video con alguien que también quiera aprender. Empezamos ahora con la historia de Moisés.
A long time ago, in the land of Egypt, there lived a group of people called the Israelites. They weren't rich. They didn't have power. In fact, they were slaves, forced to work day and night by the Egyptian king known as the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was afraid. The Israelite people were growing in number. He worried that one day they would rise up and fight back. So, he made a terrible decision. He ordered that every baby boy born to the Israelites should be taken away and thrown into the Nile River. It was cruel, it was unfair, and it caused deep pain among the people. But in the middle of that dark time, something happened. A woman had a baby boy. She looked at him and knew there was something special about him. She couldn't let him die. For 3 months, she hid him in her home, doing everything she could to keep him safe. But eventually, she realized she couldn't hide him forever. So, with a heavy heart, she came up with a brave plan. She took a small basket, made it as strong and waterproof as she could, and placed her baby inside. Then, she gently set the basket into the river and let it float away, hoping, praying, that someone kind would find him. That baby's name was Moses. The baby in the basket floated gently down the river. His sister, Miriam, followed from a distance, hiding in the tall grass along the riverbank. She wanted to see what would happen. Then, something unexpected happened. A group of women came down to the river to bathe. Among them was the daughter of Pharaoh, a princess. She noticed the basket floating nearby. She told her servants to bring it to her. When she opened it, she saw the baby. He was crying softly, wrapped in cloth. The princess felt a deep compassion. "This must be one of the Hebrew babies," she said. But instead of following her father's order to destroy him, she decided to keep him. She chose to save him. Just then, little Miriam, Moses' sister, stepped out from her hiding place. She bravely approached the princess and said, "Would you like me to find a Hebrew woman to take care of the baby for you?" The princess agreed. So Miriam ran home and brought back her own mother. Moses' mother. In an amazing twist of fate, the very woman who placed her son in the river now got to care for him again and was even paid by the Egyptian royal family to do it. Later, when the boy was old enough, he was brought to live in the palace. The princess gave him the name Moses, which means drawn out of the water. And just like that, a Hebrew boy, born as a slave, was now growing up as a prince inside the royal palace of Egypt. But deep inside, Moses never forgot who he really was. Moses grew up in the palace of Pharaoh, surrounded by gold, fine clothes, and royal food. He was treated like a prince. He had everything: comfort, luxury, and power. But in his heart, he knew the truth. He wasn't Egyptian, he was Hebrew, one of the people who were suffering outside the palace walls. As he got older, that truth began to bother him more and more. Every time he rode through the streets, he saw his own people being beaten, insulted, and forced to work like animals. They were building cities, lifting heavy stones, and being treated like they didn't matter. And Moses couldn't ignore it anymore. One day, as he walked through the work sites, he saw an Egyptian slave master hitting a Hebrew man, one of his own people. Moses looked around. No one was watching. His anger exploded. He stepped in and attacked the Egyptian and killed him. It wasn't planned. It just happened, fast and violent. Then he buried the body in the sand and hoped no one would ever find out. But the next day, Moses saw two Hebrew men arguing. He tried to break up the fight, saying, "Why are you hitting each other? You're brothers." One of them replied, "Who made you ruler over us? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses froze. Someone had seen it. His secret was out. And soon Pharaoh found out too. The man who once grew up like a prince was now a wanted man. Afraid for his life, Moses ran away. He left Egypt and escaped into the desert, alone, confused, and full of regret. He had no home, no title, no plan. Just the burning question inside his heart. Who am I really supposed to be? Moses had escaped from Egypt and ran deep into the desert. There, far from the palace and the pain, he found a small village called Midian. He helped some local women by a well, and one of them told her father, a wise priest named Jethro. Jethro welcomed Moses into his family. In time, Moses married one of Jethro's daughters and started a new life. Years passed. Moses became a shepherd. He lived a quiet, peaceful life, walking through the hills, watching over sheep, and raising his children. For a while, it seemed like his old life was behind him. No more palaces, no more power, no more pain. But God hadn't forgotten him. One day, while Moses was out in the wilderness watching his sheep, something strange caught his eye. It was a bush on fire. But the flames weren't burning the bush up. The leaves were still green. The branches weren't turning to ash. He walked closer, and then he heard a voice. "Moses, Moses." Moses stopped in shock. "Here I am," he answered. The voice said, "Take off your sandals. You are standing on holy ground." It was the voice of God. Moses trembled. He had never felt anything like this before. Then God said, "I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries, and I am sending you, Moses, to bring them out of slavery." Moses couldn't believe it. "Me? Why me? I'm just a shepherd. I ran away. I'm not even a good speaker." But God replied, "I will be with you, and I will give you the words to say." In that moment, everything changed. Moses wasn't just a shepherd anymore. He was a man with a mission, chosen to face the most powerful leader in the world and demand freedom for his people. Moses didn't feel ready. He was nervous. He had left Egypt years ago as a wanted man. Now God was sending him back, not as a prince, not as a fugitive, but as a messenger of freedom. But he didn't have to go alone. God told Moses that his brother Aaron would help him. Aaron could speak clearly and confidently. Together, they would face Pharaoh and tell him something no one had dared to say before. "Let my people go." So Moses and Aaron returned to Egypt. They went straight to Pharaoh's palace, the same place where Moses had once walked as royalty. Now he entered as a man on a mission. They stood before the king and said, "The Lord, the God of Israel, says, 'Let my people go.'" Pharaoh looked at them and laughed. "Who is this God? I don't know him, and I'm not letting anyone go." Instead of freeing the people, Pharaoh made things even worse. He gave the Israelite slaves more work, more pain, more pressure. The people cried out. They were angry, not just at Pharaoh, but at Moses. Why did you come here? You've only made things harder. Moses felt discouraged. He went back to God and said, Lord, why did you send me? Nothing is getting better. But God replied, Be patient. Pharaoh's heart is hard, but I will show him my power. Soon he will have no choice but to let the people go. That was the beginning of something incredible. God told Moses to perform signs, miracles, to show Pharaoh that this mission was serious. He turned Moses' staff into a snake, made his hand turn leprous and heal again, and even turned water into blood. Still, Pharaoh refused to listen. And so began a chain of events that would shake Egypt to its core. The 10 plagues. But that part is coming next. Pharaoh had refused to listen. He ignored the signs. He laughed at Moses. And the suffering of the Israelite people only got worse. So, just as God had promised, the plagues began, one by one. These weren't just natural disasters. Each one showed God's power and sent a message. Let my people go. 1. The Nile turns to blood. Moses touched the river with his staff, and the water turned red like blood. The fish died. The river stank. People couldn't drink from it. 2. Frogs. Frogs came out of the river and filled every home, in beds, in ovens, everywhere. It was chaos. Pharaoh begged Moses to stop it, but then changed his mind once the frogs were gone. 3. Gnats, or lice. Dust rose from the ground and became tiny biting insects. People and animals were covered in them. 4. Flies. Swarms of flies filled the land, except where the Israelites lived. God was making a difference between his people and the Egyptians. 5. Death of livestock. All the Egyptian animals, cows, horses, donkeys, died. But the Israelite animals were untouched. 6. Boils. Painful sores appeared on people and animals. Even Pharaoh's magicians couldn't stand up. They were covered in boils. 7. Hailstorm. A violent storm of hail and fire fell from the sky, destroying crops and trees. It was like nothing Egypt had ever seen. 8. Locusts. Clouds of insects came and ate what was left. Fields were ruined. Hunger spread. 9. Darkness. For 3 full days, there was total darkness in Egypt. People couldn't even see each other. But where the Israelites lived, there was light. Each time, Pharaoh promised to let the people go. But every time, he changed his mind. His heart was hard. He refused to give in. Then God told Moses, there will be one final plague. After this, Pharaoh will not just let you go, he will force you to leave. And that final plague would be the most painful of all. God had sent 9 plagues, and still Pharaoh refused to let the Israelites go. But now the final plague was coming, one that would break Egypt's heart. Moses warned Pharaoh, at midnight, every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the Pharaoh's son to the servant's child, even the animals. But no one among the Israelites will be touched. Pharaoh didn't listen. And so God gave the Israelites special instructions to protect their families. Each household had to choose a perfect lamb, kill it, and place some of its blood on the doorframe of their house. They were also told to stay inside that night, eat a special meal, and be ready to leave quickly. That night became known as Passover, because the spirit of death would pass over every home that had the sign of protection. At midnight, it happened. In every Egyptian home, the firstborn son died, even Pharaoh's own child. Cries of grief and pain filled the air. It was a night Egypt would never forget. Pharaoh, broken and defeated, called Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night. "Get out!" he shouted. "Take your people and go. Leave Egypt." After hundreds of years of slavery, the Israelites were finally free. They left in a hurry, carrying their children, their animals, and whatever they could pack. They didn't even have time to let their bread rise. That's why even today, during Passover, Jewish families eat unleavened bread. Thousands and thousands of Israelites followed Moses into the wilderness, toward the land God had promised them. But Egypt wasn't done just yet. Pharaoh's heart changed again. "What have I done?" he shouted. "We've let our slaves go." He gathered his army, horses, chariots, and soldiers, and chased after the Israelites. The people of Israel had made it to the edge of the Red Sea, water in front of them, an army behind them. They panicked. "Moses, why did you bring us here to die?" But Moses stood tall and said, "Don't be afraid. Stand still and watch what God is about to do." He raised his staff over the sea. And then a strong wind blew all night. The water split in two, and a path opened up right through the middle of the sea, dry ground where there had been nothing but waves. The people walked through, step by step, amazed and terrified. Pharaoh's army followed, racing into the open path. But just as the last Israelite stepped out of the sea, the waters collapsed. The sea came crashing back down. The entire Egyptian army was swallowed by the waves. The people of Israel stood on the other side, free, safe, and in complete awe. They sang, they danced, they praised God, because for the first time in centuries, they were no longer slaves. The people of Israel were free, but their journey was far from over. Moses led them through the desert, heading toward the land God had promised them. But life in the desert wasn't easy. There was no water, no cities, no food, just sand, heat, and endless walking. The people began to complain. "Why did you bring us out here, Moses? We're going to die in the desert." But God didn't abandon them. He made water flow from a rock when they were thirsty. And each morning he sent manna, a kind of bread that appeared on the ground. They called it bread from heaven. When they wanted meat, God sent quail into the camp so they could eat. Every day, God gave them what they needed. But still, they complained, they argued, they doubted, and they forgot too quickly the miracles they had seen. Even so, Moses stayed faithful. He climbed a mountain called Mount Sinai to speak with God. There, something amazing happened. Thunder shook the mountain. Lightning flashed. A thick cloud covered the top. God gave Moses something sacred, something that would shape the future of Israel forever, the 10 Commandments. They were simple, powerful rules to guide the people. Don't worship other gods. Don't lie. Don't steal. Honor your parents. Respect life. When Moses came down the mountain with the stone tablets in his hands, what he saw broke his heart. While he had been with God, the people had grown tired of waiting. They built a golden calf, a fake god, and were dancing around it, worshiping it. Moses was furious. He threw the tablets on the ground, breaking them in anger. How could they forget everything God had done for them? Still, God gave them another chance. Moses returned to the mountain, and God gave him the commandments again, a sign of his mercy and patience. The Israelites continued traveling through the desert. It wasn't just a journey of miles. It was a journey of growth, testing, and trust. And though they had been freed from slavery, they still had a lot to learn about what it meant to be truly free. Moses had done so much. He had faced Pharaoh. He had led his people through the Red Sea. He had spoken with God face to face. And he had carried the 10 Commandments down from the mountain. But even great leaders have limits. The people of Israel were still in the desert, still traveling toward the promised land, a beautiful land God had prepared for them. But getting there took years. Why? Because the people kept doubting, complaining, and turning away from God. They weren't ready. So God made a decision. The generation that had left Egypt, the adults who had seen the miracles but still doubted, would not enter the promised land. Only their children would cross into it. Even Moses, though faithful, made a mistake. One day, when the people were complaining again about water, God told Moses to speak to a rock, and water would come out. But Moses was angry. Instead of speaking to the rock, he hit it twice with his staff. Water came out, but God saw Moses' disobedience. And God told him, "Because you did not honor me as holy, you will not enter the promised land." It was a hard moment, but Moses didn't argue. He accepted it. And he continued to lead the people with love, wisdom, and strength. Years passed. The new generation grew up. The people were finally ready. One day, God told Moses, "Go up to the mountain. From there, you will see the land I promised your people." So Moses climbed Mount Nebo. He looked out over the land, hills, rivers, fields, everything his people would soon enjoy. And there, on that mountain, after a long, incredible life, Moses died. He was 120 years old. The Bible says his eyes were still sharp and his strength had not left him. God himself buried Moses in a place no one ever found. The people mourned for him. They cried for 30 days, and then they moved forward, led by Joshua, the new leader chosen by God. But the memory of Moses stayed in their hearts. Final reflection. Moses didn't just lead people out of slavery. He led them through fear, through mistakes, through growing pains, toward hope, and toward God. He wasn't perfect, but he was faithful, and that made all the difference. His story teaches us that great leaders are servants first. Faith grows in the wilderness. And sometimes the greatest impact comes from helping others reach their future, even if we don't reach it ourselves.